Good morning, boys. Good afternoon to everyone, and morning to the others. So welcome to today's presentation. Today's presentation will be talking about on thematic analysis, like the various steps we have in order to carry out thematic analysis. And I'll be doing this presentation with Jordan, so I'll begin the presentation and she'll round up with the steps in thematic analysis. So, like we have been talking on how to carry out the qualitative research and the interviews and focus groups. So what we are about doing today is actually a type of qualitative research analysis, which is called thematic analysis. This is not the only type of analysis, but for the purpose of us actually carrying out and doing our analysis, we are going to focus on thematic analysis. And our presentation will follow this outline from introduction right down to references. And at the end of this presentation, it's important for us to understand what is thematic analysis and when to use thematic analysis, and also demonstrate how you can conduct the process of thematic analysis using the Brown and Clark method, which was introduced in 2006, and to describe the various steps in thematic analysis. So what is thematic analysis? Thematic analysis is the process of familiarizing yourself with the data and coding reoccurring themes. And the purpose of thematic analysis is for us to actually bring out these themes so that we can uncover deeper insight. Same as quantitative research, that we bring out our data and we analyze the data in order to get maybe what the data is all about. That's also what thematic analysis is all about. It's all about you gathering the data. The data here are your transcripts, maybe from your interviews or your focus group discussions, that you look at it, you develop your codes, and from these codes you can be able to develop things that will help you to have a deeper insight of what the person is or the people are talking. So it is thematic analysis is mostly common in qualitative research processes. And with regards to thematic analysis can be inductive and it can also be deductive thematic analysis. When we are talking about inductive thematic analysis, we're talking about the process in which the data is coded without trying to fit the theme into pre-existing code frames or the researcher preconception about the research. So what am I trying to say here? Here, I'm trying to say that when you're doing an inductive thematic analysis, you don't have a preconception, as in you don't look at other articles to see the themes of that article so that you try to actually force those themes in your own work, but you actually look at the data, and from the data line by line, you are able to deduct your own theme. So you're actually taking it from bottom to top, as in you read line by line your transcript so that you can be able to generate your own code. So you don't have one preconception of a code that exists somewhere. You're just working with what you have. But deductive analysis is actually a different way. It uses a different approach. So from what data has already proven, you already start deducting your themes from there, and then you actually form and incorporate it in your analysis. So when it comes to also thematic analysis, we can also have thematic analysis and Latin analysis. When we talk about thematic analysis, in this kind of analysis, you're identifying theme based on explicitly the surface level meaning in the data. What do we talk about surface meaning of the data? You just look at the data and what the person is bringing out, like what the person is saying, that's exactly what you're coding. Meanwhile, when we talk about latent thematic analysis, is analysis that focuses on what is implied rather than what is explicitly stated. A difference an example we can bring out from this with thematic analysis. Here, you actually just want to have a review, for example, of our Monday research training. We just want to know people's perspective about how it's going, if it's actually good or it's not good. You just want to have, maybe you decide to just interview someone or a group of people to see how it's going, and maybe they tell you your point of view. You're actually just going to analyze it based on this surface level view. With with regards to the latent thematic analysis, you have maybe a situation where you come to a workplace and maybe you are trying to see how the working environment actually makes them feel, like they're experiencing some things like that. Maybe during the course of the interview, you realize that in that type of environment, people are not also so free to actually say exactly how they feel. But there are so many words that they are going to use that you know that there's a deeper meaning to that. For example, they can just say that the working environment is there. It's not quite, they're not quite explaining what is happening, but you already know that there's a deeper feeling to that. It's not just that surface meaning of the working environment is there. There's something deeper. Maybe what is deeper is maybe they don't feel so valued in the workplace, but it will be very difficult for them to actually express it like that in their words. So this type of analysis is when you actually want to have a deeper meaning of what it is, and other factors play a lot, because while doing the interviews, you are jotting, you're seeing their non-verbal cues. So I think even with this kind of analysis, the non-verbal cues that have been noted are actually are very important. So while we'll be talking about thematic analysis, there are some terms we are going to use, and the first term is code. And a code is actually a basic unit or meaning identified in the data during the analysis, and it helps to analyze and sort data into different categories. So before Jordan will come in, I want to actually up bring up maybe um a qualitative research study that we are carrying out recently, and the study is about a tablet-based study. And here, what are we trying to do? We are trying to know if the experiences that the people at the site have had using tablets instead of the papers as before. And when we are talking about coding here, maybe while looking at the transcript of the those that were interviewed, you start coding some terms or some phrases that they've used, and you code them, maybe experience with the tablet. I will not explain more to that because during the steps you will be able to briefly explain what it is all about. So a theme is actually broader than a code. A theme is actually a combination, is a broader pattern or meaning that captures something important about the data in relation to the research question. Themes are built from groups of related code. So you first of all have the theme, and after the theme, you first of all have the code, and small chunks of code actually make up a theme. An example of a theme that you can derive, especially from the study that we are carrying out, is we are getting a theme that actually captures the perception of tablet-based data collection. And when we talk about a data extract, here we're talking about a segment or portion of the raw data, such as the quote of the participants. Here it's a word for word something, like you're taking exactly what the person has stated, but you don't maybe take all, you're taking like a chunk of it, but that's exactly what the participants said. So when are you to use thematic analysis? You use thematic analysis when you're actually exploring qualitative data to understand people's perspective, experiences, and meaning. And these perspectives and experiences can be gotten from interviews and focus group discussions. And examples of questions that we can use thematic analysis is, for example, you want to find out how patients perceive doctors in a hospital setting. That's a simple question that with your transcript, you can actually do a thematic analysis. And the next point is, what is your perspective on the transition from paper to electronic data capture devices, like the study that we are carrying out now. So there are different phases of thematic analysis according to the Brown and Clark in 2006. So the first phase is actually to familiarize yourself with the data. Second, by generating initial codes. Thirdly, by searching for things. Fourth, reviewing and refining your themes. Defining and naming your themes like for the final step, and later on reporting your data. I think I'll leave it now, leave the presentation now for Jordan to continue.
So to begin with, the very first phase by Brown and Clark, we have the familiarization phase. This is a point where you have to familiarize yourself with the data. So you have collected your data from the participants, you have the audio recordings, you have transcribed the audio recordings, and you have a copy of the transcript with you. You know your objectives, you know what you want to, you know why you're analyzing the data. So it's important that you read through your transcripts over and over again. The first time you're reading through the transcripts, you make sure that you just try to have an idea of what is in the transcript. And then the second time you're reading the transcript, that's when you go ahead taking notes. You remember when you're conducting the interview, you're taking notes about some non-verbal cues. So this is when you have to jot down all of these things, because all of this is going to help you in the analysis process. So yeah, it's important to listen to the recordings. It's important to take notes and transcribe the data properly. And know that during the reading process, where you have to read and read and read again, it helps you to be able to identify patterns in the data, and also shapes your understanding of how the data looks like. The second phase is the generating initial codes phase. So after you familiarize yourself with the data, the next step is for you to generate your code. Sorry. So in this phase, we're going to organize our data into meaningful and systematic way, in a way that, just like we saw, we have codes, we have themes, we have extracts. So the codes are like the little chunks of the data that you have extracted that actually makes sense, because you cannot present everything of what the participant has said. So you want to summarize your data into code. That's going to help you to be able to make meaning out of the data. And also this is done in a systematic way. Like, in order for you to reduce all of the data that you have into something that makes sense, you have to do it systematically, so that you don't miss out on new codes, or you don't miss out on some very important information. And also there are different ways to code your data, which is determined by your research objective or the kind of data analysis method they are using. And for example, given a example that Melissa earlier introduced, we have what is the perception on transitioning from paper-based data collection to electronic data collection. So given this example, we're going to have an extract from some of the interviews that we conducted, and we're going to see how to code this data that is going to help us in the analysis process. So here on the right, we have, on the left, sorry, you have the extract, and then on the right, you have the codes that have been originated or generated from the extract. So reading through the transcripts, which at this point, we assume that you must have already done following the first phase, you have an idea of what is in the data. And you also understand that because a participant says it became simpler and easier to go with compared to other types of methods. So you see that, okay, this is something that is coming up. What is the code? What can we do in order to summarize what he or she had said in this point? You generate a code. This is ease of use. This is just for example. And then going further, you read again, it became more confidential, as you don't have many people having access to the data. And then, okay, this is a new thing coming up. What can we summarize this to? Confidentiality. And then you have log pattern. You see, this is similar to the initial code we had derived. So we just also code it under the confidentiality code. Plus, we put it under the confidentiality code. And then we have, so it became very easy. And with the software, we have less errors. Again, simplicity is repeating itself. That's ease of use. You can recode it under ease of use. And a new code is actually coming up. That is the accuracy. As it presents here, as we have less errors. Then the person goes further by saying that immediately there is an error for data upload, the software will easily identify. So you see that it also falls under some accuracy. So generally, when it comes to coding your data, you're just trying to summarize your data in a way that is going to make it easy for you to understand. So as you continue reading through your text, the transcript you have, you may be generating new codes as need may arise. And then this course gives you like a condensed overview of the main points or the main context of your data. Some of them may be reoccurring. It just depends on it. And for the third phase, we have searching for themes. So as we earlier mentioned, the theme is a pattern or it's a pattern that is captured in your data. So in this case, we have derived our codes from the previous phase. And now we notice that some of these codes fit together, that you can easily put them together to form a theme. So in this phase, we're going to be generating the themes. When we say generating, meaning that it comes from you, because you're the person that's supposed to create the theme based on your data or the codes that you see that have emerged in your data. And all of this should come from your data, because that's why they said this, you have to declare your reflexivity. So you should not assume that, okay, because they said this thing is going to exist. So you should look over the codes that you have created, and then you identify the patterns between the code. And then in this code, you can start grouping them together to form patterns. For example, we have confidentiality that was generated as a code. We have ease of use that was generated as a code. We have accuracy that was generated as a code. All these put together, we see that it falls under the perception. Their perception of using the electronic data collection method. So these codes have helped us to summarize the data, and the team has helped us to have a picture of what is coming out from the data. Just like on the other hand, we have other codes like data consistency, we have double verification. A participant said, okay, with the tablet, you have the possibility of verifying your data automatically instead of reading through the data to make sure that you do not skip out on something or you do not enter something wrong in. And you also have the aspect of data completeness. So because all of these things are similar, all of these codes are similar, sorry, we can group them to a particular theme. That's the perception of the data quality. And we should know that themes are usually broader than codes, because most of the time you have to put in several codes to make a single theme, just like we have seen in our example. So going forward to the next phase, which is the phase where we have to review the themes. We notice that maybe in the course of generating our codes, they may have been too vague. They really did not make sense at that point, but because we're trying to summarize our data, we put them as codes. So in this phase, we want to be able to we want to be able to go through all the themes that you have generated, and then make sure that the themes that you have generated really make sense with what is in the data. So you don't have a theme coming from where it's not in the data. So we have to modify and develop our preliminary themes that we have identified in phase 3. So you ask the question of, do these themes make sense? Or are the codes a representation of what the themes are supposed to be? So for example, in this point, we want to be looking at the internal consistency. That's how the themes make sense how the codes make sense between the theme, and also want to look at the external variation, how the themes make sense across with other themes. So here it's mostly going to be a comparison process. And so we're going to be doing it in 2 steps, reviewing level one review where we are reviewing the data and the codes under each team to make sure that all of them have the same meaning, they have the same patterns, they have the same connection, and also they are similar to be categorized under that particular team. And then the second review process is the level two reviewing. Here we're checking for the validity of the teams across the entire data set. We want to make sure that all of the things that have emerged from the data is actually a representative of what is being captured in the data. And they're not just things that came from somewhere. Maybe you thought this should have been a team that should have emerged or not. Like we saw the example of perception of electronic data collection, which we saw the codes under that made sense. And we also saw the perception of the data quality, which we saw the codes under that made sense. So let me just take us back for a bit. Like in this case, we can see that instead of placing accuracy under perception of electronic data collection, you may want to fall better under perception of data quality. So we'll move the code accuracy under the perception of data quality. Because in this point, you discover that most of the participants were saying that the data is correct, the data is up to date, it's easy for you to enter the data, which falls more under data quality aspect than the perception of the electronic data caption. So we may have to move the code accuracy to the team under the team perception of data collection. So generally in the reviewing of teams process, you just want to make sure that every code that you're coding under a particular thing makes sense, and the themes that you have identified from your data is in relation to what is in the data. So you want to do internal consistency and external variation. So the fifth stage, what we have here is like the final refinement stage, where it helps us to determine the narrative structure of each theme. So you have to define this theme and name the theme. What do you mean by defining the theme? Defining the theme means that, okay, you've identified the particular theme, the perception of electronic database collection, and see what is the importance of this theme in relation to your data. And it enables us to be able to establish the essence of each theme and thereby supports the generation of appropriate names. That's when you have defined your theme, you can better know how to name the theme. So we don't want to have very complex themes. We don't want to have very diverse themes. We want to have themes that are in relation to our codes and themes that are also in relation to our data. So sometimes it may be important for us to not only have themes, but we also have sub-themes. Sub-themes are just like the name sub-themes, they are part of the themes that are related to the main theme. So you have the theme, you have the sub-theme, and you have the code. And all of them should be in relation to our objectives. So still under defining and naming our themes, the names that we give to our theme has to be concise. That's, excuse me. So you have to come up with a very concise and understandable name for each theme. And just like coding, the naming process is an interpretative process and it also requires creative skills, which is one of the major limitations for this thematic analysis, because if you really don't know how to name your themes or come up with concise names for the themes, analysis may become difficult for you. And not only the analysis process, but also when it comes to interpreting your data. So let's take our example of perception of EDC. So this is the theme that we have given it. We have named the theme. Finally, we have come to a compromise of our code and we have named the theme. And defining the theme, we say that this theme summarizes general attitudes, beliefs, and experiences with a shift from paper-based data collection method to electronic data collection method in a healthcare setting. So this is our theme that we have defined and we have named. So the last phase, which is the analysis, the write-up of our analysis. So just like academic writings, it enables us to be able to produce the output of our analysis. Like everything we do, we need to be able to present the result. And so when we are reporting and presenting the results, we need to do the following. We have to provide an analytic and interpretative account of the data. So you must go beyond just re-describing the data and saying exactly what the participant said. You have to give meaning to the data, and you must generate an argument that answers your research question. And also, when it comes to producing your report, your evidence, the arguments with reference to vivid data extracts. So in the course of presenting your final report, you need to support your you need to support your output with extracts or excerpts from the data that you have captured. So you may have to quote what the participant says in support of what of the themes or the codes that you have derived from your data. And also, just like unlike writing other forms of reports, yeah, you don't need to follow any particular format. Like it needs to have this, it doesn't need to have that, because it's a very um free process. It's a flexible process, let me say. You just need your data to be coherent. And imagine that you're telling a story of the data that you've collected from the field. So you just have to be coherent in the presentation of your result, as there are no rules in presenting your result. So you should just have a brief explanation of the theme, and then provide the evidence of the theme present in your data by supporting it with extracts and quotes like you see. So this is an example of an output, as we have the main theme, perceptions of electronic data capture, and we have codes under this theme, easy to use, and we have supporting extract. It is faster, it is more reliable. In fact, I can say that it has made my work easier. And when presenting the extract, I want to say that it's important to state the type of interview. That's why we have an IDI, and then you have your participant ID for the study. These are this is going to help you to identify where exactly this extract is coming from. And also we have the code challenges of using the tablet-based method, and then we have an extract. The most prominent challenge, I think, comes from the level of working with incompetent people that don't really understand how the tablet functions. And just like how we said that you have to review your teams, you have to make sure that your codes are a representation of your team and the extracts are a presentation of your codes. So everything you're presenting should make sense. Like you should not be talking about easy to use and then the extract has nothing related to ease of use in it. Or you should not be talking about data accuracy and then the extract, the supporting extract you're attaching has nothing to do with data accuracy. So you just have to make sure that in the presentation, your results are coherent. So we have an example of how you can present in your write-up. So this is like a description of our participants with the main theme, that was the perception of the EDC. So we start by saying the majority of participants highlighted how the benefit of EDC compared to paper, and it can be seen in the excerpts below. So since it's a qualitative study, we really cannot support our findings with numbers. They cannot say 10% or 50%, but depending on how you analyze the data and discover that the frequency of that particular code is higher, then you can use comparative words like majority, less, or fewer people. And sometimes to be able to help you know which word appeared most frequently in your data, you can generate a word cloud like this. So you see that in this data set where this word cloud was extracted, you have qualitative research as the most prominent word that occurred many times. So the larger the word, the more the word was mentioned throughout the research, throughout the interview process, and the smaller words were least mentioned in the interview process. So this word cloud can also help you to know what was the main thing that emerged from your data. So there are many tools that we can use for thematic analysis. You can do manually using Microsoft Word or Excel, like what we did earlier was manual, or you can use a qualitative analysis software like NVivo, Atlas TI, or Max QDA. I know that for all of these softwares, they are not free, but they have a trial period for up to 14 days that you can use to analyze your data. And the trial period also gives you access to most of the features that you need for the analysis. So it's very good. And I remember last time somebody questioned about if there was a software that could do the transcription. And I also discovered that MassQDA can actually transcribe your data for you. But the others you need to import the data already transcribed in the Word form. Yes. And also these softwares can help you to analyze pictures, videos, and anything that is going to be important in in producing your results. So what are the benefits of using thematic analysis? So thematic analysis is important because it's flexible. It can be used across a wide range of theological frameworks. In as much as this is not the only method of analyzing data, it's the most used, especially for qualitative data. And also it's accessible and easy to learn. And as a new researcher, it's something that you can do on your own. You must not need someone to teach you so far as you know how to go through the coding process, correctly identify the themes that have emerged from your data. It's easy for you to analyze your data and produce results. It also provides rich, detailed, and complex data interpretation as it helps to explore meaning and experiences in depth. It facilitates clear structured presentation of results as you see in our themes, our sub-themes, and quotes. They also provide some form of transparency. You know that the most important aspect when it comes to qualitative data is the ability for you to be able to trust the data or trust the results gotten from the data. So when you document all the processes, you're able to gain some form of credibility in the results that you reproduce, that you'll be presenting. So this thematic analysis, since it's systematic, can help you get transparency and rigor. But in as much as it's important, it also has its own limitations because it has a lot of subjectivity and researchers bias. The data that you get depends on the person analyzing the data. And sometimes they may want to bring in their ideas or what they have at the back of their mind. And that's what that is going to be dominate in the result. It's also time consuming, especially if you want to do it manually. And note that generally for qualitative data, it cannot be generalized across different populations, except they have similar characteristics. But because you're looking at people's perceptions and different understanding, you cannot say this is the same as the perception of one person is the same as another person, except they're in the same setting or with similar characteristics. And also there's the challenge of developing things, as this is highly dependent on your skills to be able to come up with something. So it becomes challenging for people that are unable to know, okay, this should be a theme, this should be a code. You have a lot of terms that may mix up, and if you don't really understand the differences between these terms, it becomes very challenging for you to produce your results clearly. And sometimes you may oversimplify things. You just say, okay, maybe this one appeared just one time, it should not be a thing. Or maybe this one, only one person said it, it should not be a code. So you should also know that when presenting your data, you should have to, you make sure that you present the extracts not from all the participants, but even an extract from one participant is okay, so far as you have a supporting extract for that study. Because people go as far as presenting up to 6 extracts for the same thing from different participants because they want to show that okay, it actually emerged in the study, and then we have different people saying the same thing. No, that's really not important. And so some tips for us to be able to overcome these limitations, we should be able to use clear and transparent methods like the Brown and Clark method, which is highly recommended if you want to do thematic analysis. You should state your reflexivity. You should be able to triangulate your data and have peer debriefing to improve trustworthiness. Also, the documentation process is very important. You have to clearly document your code in a code book. You have to state why you chose that code, and then document your team development process as well. So in conclusion, we'll say that thematic analysis is a fundamental method in qualitative research and allows researchers to explore patterns and meanings within data systematically. We should say that it's flexible, it's accessible, and provides rich insights. So it's ideal if you want to use the data across a range of disciplines or study designs. It also provides some form of rigor and transparency, so you can ensure the credibility of the findings that you get from the data. And when you use properly, this data that is gotten through thematic analysis can be put into action and informs policy and practice in our society. So we have references that we use, and thank you for your keen attention.